And we did it. We're back again. Okay. We should have some sort of like drum roll. Well, welcome back to the Capacity Conversations, where two women from each coast of the US have challenging dialogue about self-trust, transformation, and the reality most modern millennials are facing today. Do we actually have the capacity to do all the things we want to do? If you're joining us for the first time, my name is Raquel, Clarity Strategist, Web and Digital Assets Designer. That's new. We can get into that. Or like rebranded. Helping millennials create and sustain their peace, purpose, and prosperity on their terms. I'll hand it over to my amazing co-host, Sarah, to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Liljegren, and to sum it up short and sweet, I am in the business of rewilding real estate. I work in the modern American real estate industry, and I've also been very connected to nature and love the natural cycles as an herbalist and a naturalist. And so I'm working on building a bridge between those two worlds, since they seem vastly different right now, but there's a lot of work in the in-between. That's where the magic's at.
I love it. I love it. And that's really our podcast, is the in-between, like figuring it out and holding paradoxes. So we're both great. And we are on episode 3. After sharing our origin stories in the beginning of our series, all about our why, our how, why do we do what we do, how did we come to do this work, and why is it meaningful for us? Episode 2, just a quick recap, we got into some of the history. So what are the things that have led specifically us millennials, but anybody who's listening, watching this, who feels impacted by so many external things pushing and pulling us, and us individuals not feeling or literally not being able to like show up for things. So what has happened in the history of humanity, socioeconomics, all these things that has got us to this kind of pinnacle point. So that was last episode. And one quick kind of blurb is that if you get one thing out of this episode or this series, I hope you know, we hope you know that this is not your fault. There are systems and structures that are literally, whether we want to be conspiracy theories or not, but that are keeping us, enabling us to be deficient. And we'll get into that in this episode, all about deficiencies. So just know it's not your fault. You know, we've all inherited this. And so give yourself grace as we all navigate this. Oh, shout out, check out our show notes for the Spotify playlist to this awesome series. If you are in the mood for something uplifting, nurturing, nourishing, we've got some cool music that you can vibe out to. Okay, so I will start us off with part 1. So get your cup of tea or beverage of choice. I mean, I'm not an alcohol drinker, so I'm not judging, but do you? So the question that we're going to start with, and then Sarah will lead us into the meat of the matter. Why are we struggling with capacity, and why are we so tired? So my disclaimer here that I wrote down, and I'm going to read it verbatim, is that deficiency doesn't go away. To work on one area of life means that we're not working on another area of life, because we can't multitask as much as we would like to. So to some extent, giving ourselves the peace, I keep saying grace because that feels very meaningful for me, that we are what we strive for and what we are working for in terms of capacity in our lives, is an ongoing thing. And we'll get into that it's a work, it's a labor of love to give ourselves and to come back to ourselves. So the disclaimer is that this sense of lacking doesn't go away, because I feel like that's what life is. There's always less of something in one area, and that's okay. So what is the word deficiency? So I was telling Sarah when we were prepping for all of this that I've been going on this kind of binging rabbit hole Alice in Wonderland journey of etymology. My background, I got a degree in English. I don't understand all of the things of English. It just is an umbrella term for learning how to write and learning how to communicate well. And I really was fascinated one of the classes about like the root word of things and how language has changed, evolved. And I've been doing some life coaching work, and the life coach had me think about boundaries. And so I've been getting into this whole, well, what is a boundary and what is this and why? And so the word deficiency came into the mind because of this episode, but also thinking about, well, where is the lack? Like, what is that? What does it mean to not, to be without or to have less than? So I want us to start with this kind of groundwork because I want us to think about how we define, like thinking about power behind the words, the intentionality. So verbatim, deficiency comes from the Latin deficientia, which literally means a failing or a failure. And that piece comes from another root called deficere. I'm not Italian. I mean, there's romantic languages, so we all have a root system. So I'm hoping that that makes sense. But it means to fail, to fall short. So it literally means a falling away from doing. So if we think about it in that way, that a deficiency isn't that you are less than or that any of us is um, less than, is minimal. If we're thinking about, it's just a falling away, like it's a, it could be an intentional or just a natural part of balance of, we're not doing this right now. This is what's happening right now. So we could interpret that, as I said, as maybe we haven't been allowed to, or we haven't been able to, so there's no capacity, whether that's emotional, mental, spiritual, financial, environmental. But all of this ultimately, to my mind, implies choice. This choice of what can we do, or what do we have time to do, what is within our reach, and what is not. So as I said in the previous episode, episode 2, we talked all about kind of the historical, what got us here, and all the systemic, economic, all the different powers that be. And so all of that, bringing that context into mind, has given all of us different layers, levels of choice. So when we think about deficiency and this of falling away from doing, whether it's an intentional or unintentional thing, it's like, well, what is the choice for us right now? So I think really deficiency is about being in the moment, being in the present, and thinking about, what are the choices that I have access to? What are the things that I am allowing myself or able to negotiate and engage with, which is really hard, because I think immediately when I think of the word deficiency, it's like, oh shit, something is wrong with me. Like I'm lacking in something. But the more that we peel back the layers of this, of falling away from doing, it's not a lack in us innately. I think that if we are really honest with ourselves, that we are just another animal, another sentient being on this planet, that we all come with all the things we already need. And unfortunately, the systems and the structure, the environment, I love Sarah's work because it's like that real estate piece, that what does it mean to have a home? What does it mean to have a grounding and a shelter that may or may not be supportive to us? But that's, we're being kind of implanted in that. Like, it's not, I didn't necessarily choose to be in this apartment. It was the option presented to me. So thinking about deficiency as like, it's not something I'm deficient in, but it's like there's a lack in the environment, in the structure. And so how do we kind of own and take ownership of, okay, what are the choices I have within this? What am I willing, able to do, to engage with in this moment? And recognizing that there's no right or wrong answer. There's not a level playing field. And so approaching this, this topic of deficiency with a lot of care, because I think there's a lot of dialogue of like, something is wrong with us. There's something we always need to fix or get better, level up. But it's actually like, put that on pause, because that's more things coming at us and not things coming from within us. And so there's this the dialogue is incorrect. Like, it needs to be a reciprocal relationship. I think if we continue to look at nature, nature is in constant dialogue. Another word that I was telling Sarah is really meaningful is trust. And the etymology of that comes from tree. And I kept digging, and the word truce and the word, there's like 3 other ones: truce, trust, I think treaties or something, but they all have to do with this root of being rooted, quite literally. And so what does it mean to have a truce? It's you're compromising with yourself. You are having the agency within yourself, the sovereignty, to be kind to yourself and be like, you know what? This is the capacity I have right now. I can't give more than I can. And that's not a deficiency on my part. It's that this is literally what it is. Like, it's not my fault, or I'm sorry, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna add, it's a natural law. You cannot
Yeah.
give more than you can. And when we're stretched so thin, and I'll get into this, like the speed of our culture, the fact that you think you should be able to do it all is a complete logical fallacy. You cannot.
Exactly. No, exactly. And exactly, thank you. And it's like we've been, I don't think any of us are consciously thinking like, oh yeah, they're selling me this lie. I mean, maybe for some things we've gotten to the point where, oh, let's check the ingredients on the back of this package, or like, let's figure out what this marketing is. They're trying to sell me something. But for so many of the deeply embedded cultural things, here in the United States, there's a huge hustle culture. Your what you do is literally the first question they ask you. What do you do? And that is identity that's wrapped up in title. And so realizing that as we talk about deficiency, it's not a you problem. It's not a you're missing something or you need to do something because of XYZ. It's more like, okay, who am I in this moment? What am I able to do in this moment? Do I want to engage with whatever this thing, person, situation is putting on me? And that's a lot, because like, who can think that way 24/7? But that's just recognizing that the waters we're swimming in are deficient. Like, we're swimming in polluted waters. And so that's where I want to start us off. I want to think about all of that in the context of inheritance, because what it means to inherit this society, these systems, not to say that, we can't change, but recognizing that change requires all of us. It requires a continuation. So the work that you do for yourself can have ripple effects for your family, your friends, your colleagues, whoever you're in touch with, your communities. And so if it's hard to think about these things in an ego sense, of like the sense of I, that's okay, because we've been taught, I think, to not put ourselves first, to not, why don't you want to keep climbing the corporate ladder? Why don't you want to keep hustling and grinding? Isn't that what success, happiness, and being efficient is? Isn't it? And it's this continuous hunger. Like, they even say that, aren't you hungry? Didn't you wake up with this hunger? Like, yeah, bro, we're all starving. Like, but it's not necessarily for money. It's deep nourishment. And the deficiency that we're all swimming in is what's keeping us hungry and stale and numb. And so when we think about inheritance, it's like, damn, multiple generations, going back to episode 2 about all these structures, the colonization, the capitalism, the consumerism, the extraction of our energy and spirit and time. It's like, well, no wonder we're having to choose between what we're doing. Do we have energy to listen to this episode from Sarah or Raquel? Do we have energy to microwave food? And it gets into these questions of what can we actually do and afford, instead of being able to realize that these are things that we've inherited. These are things that are not from us. Like, this is not something that we are seeking out or trying to see. We're just surviving. So I want to frame it in that context, that again, it's not about you lacking something or you needing to do something. It's this, I don't know if black and white is the right way of framing it, but it's just really trying to see clearly in these polluted waters that we've all been inheriting multiple generations. Sarah and I talked about our origin stories. And so for me, one of my examples is that I'm an only child. And so I really wrestled with this stereotype of like, only children like to be get attention. I was like, what? Why? I was super shy as a kid. And to conflate or compound the effect that both of my parents were always fighting all the time. So the attention I got was being the default mediator for my parents. And did I ask for that? No, it was inherited. It was just an automatic thing because my parents didn't get what they needed from their cultures and systems. And it was just this ripple effect. And I don't think it's intentional. I don't think both of them were like, we're just going to take this little girl that we gave birth to and put all our shit on her. I feel like in the end, after my parents got divorced and I emancipated, got the F out, it did, like, they realized that I was the glue, because they would literally say, Raquel, you're the thing. And so sometimes the system can recognize, and I think that's what we're reckoning with now in the United States, of like DEI, meritocracy, women's rights, LGBT, like we're really in the reckoning, because the community, the society that we have developed, and not we as in Raquel and Sarah, but like all of humanity, all the spirits that have come before us that we've all inherited. I mean, I think the natural course of nature is to seek out balance. Something has been deficient in itself. And so what is Mother Nature doing now? She's literally trying to cool herself off. She's like, these people are burning me and I'm on fire, and I need to find my own reciprocity because I'm not getting it from the inhabitants, the stewards of my sanctuary. And that's the same thing we're doing. We're looking for, as millennials, as women, as men, as people, as animals, we're looking for our own agency, autonomy, healing, in whatever that looks like for us, recognizing that we've inherited a deficient system, and that gets nuclear, like that gets to our immediate families, that gets to the places we work, that gets to the political parties, institutions we support, work with. So just recognizing that this is, as much as it is a solo effort, to develop, to understand what that means for us. Where are we? Let me go back to the definition. Where are we falling away from doing? So what is it that hasn't gotten done for us or hasn't been given to us? What is it that we haven't received? It's like going back to that inner child. All of our inner childs are malnourished or haven't been hugged. And so it's like, now we get to choose. It is a choice. Do we do that for ourselves now? Can we? Are we able to? How much? Is this the moment? And it's really hard, because if we haven't had the model, because we've inherited X, Y, Z things, it's like, wow, on top of going to work 9 to 5, on top of paying back debt, on top of surviving and just being a consumer, a citizen, a capacitated, conscious being in this 21st century globalized world, on top of all of that, now I want to remother myself, or I want to, compensate, get that balance. That's a lot. So ownership and boundaries. What does it mean to own all of this? What does it mean to have boundaries for all of this? What does it mean to hold ourselves accountable? Disclaimer that I don't want to be the expert. I really don't want to be the expert on this because I feel like, don't hold me to a pedestal because we're all in it. We're all in this. And, my answer may be very different for someone else, and that's fine. But this word of own, going to the etymology, comes from Old English agen, meaning possessed or held as property. I didn't do the etymology of possess, but I think that's interesting that it means to be held as property. So there's this claiming of it. So there's agency in that. When people say, the more we buy, the more our things possess us, and we're not possessing them. Like that thing, the screens, the things have more claim over our time, our energy, our money. So it's this nuanced conversation we're having around the words we use to live, to communicate, but also with ourselves. Like, what does it mean, again, with own, to possess ourselves, own our boundaries, be accountable to our own needs and wants that we didn't get because we inherited XYZ things. I kind of skipped over some of the etymology, but the Greek part, or the Proto-Germanic, let's just say German, pre-German, to possess means I have or I hold. There's a pi root, P-I-E, root word in that. I don't know how they spelled it in the Germanic or in the Greek, but to be master of, so to possess. So it's important, again, to understand like the context, how things were created, how things were defined for us, because now we get to redefine and choose it. So what are we choosing to be a master of? What are we choosing to take hold of? What are we choosing to embrace and be responsible for? And all these words I'm throwing out, like, redefine it. Like, what does it mean, responsibility? What does it mean, master? Like, I think master holds a lot of distraughtness, because here in the United States, my husband does kind of these designs for granite and stuff. And he has told me that they don't use master bedroom anymore because of all of this context. And so it's like, I'm not here, again, I'm not trying to be the expert of anything but myself, quite honestly, because I think everyone has a right and a privilege and a desire to claim, to possess, to own things for themselves, when so much of the world and the systems that be have not given that. Like, we're always trying to catch up or understand. So I just say, with all these words that I'm using, mastery, responsibility, accountability, please feel free to redefine it, and use words, fill in the blank, that feel more resonant to you. But it's hard, as I said, when we haven't had a model, and then it's thrust upon us. Sarah and I are very similar in age. We're both 33 this year in 2025. And so it's like, there's a lot of reckoning that happens in our 30s. And, all the things that we learned in our 20s, and now we're like, oh shit, is this really what I want? Like, in our 20s, we are just going through the motions, because we're going through the funnel of school. You do this, and then you do this, and then you do that, and then college happens, and it's just all these things are forced upon us, are owning us, are possessing us, before we even know or can or try to possess ourselves. And then we're in our 30s and then our 40s, and then it's like, pause, reverse, like, why am I walking down this path? I didn't even know, because we don't even know ourselves. And so there's this lack of self-ownership.
Self-mastery.
Self-mastery.
That's what because I work in the real estate world. Yes, it's primary bedroom now. It's not master bedroom. And as you were speaking, I went and grabbed this book called Mastery by George Leonard.
That's literally.
It's kind of about Aikido and martial arts, but the concept of mastery, if that goes away, it's like, how do we relate to ourselves? How do we relate? Because it's already essentially gone. Raquel, do you know anyone like our age that has practiced for more than, or practiced a practice for more than 10 years?
No.
And it's like, well, you might wonder, do people in their 30s even need to dedicate their lives to a practice? It's like, well, even if it's meditation, even if it's writing, even if it's a martial art or a sport,
That's right.
yeah, the idea of holding on to something and honing your skill over a long period of time
Yes.
isn't, that's a deficiency in our culture for sure.
Yeah, because then it's like what, now we talked a little bit, I think, about that in the second episode about technologies, and I think Sarah will lead us into that in the meat of all of this. But it's like now we're constantly playing catch up, and yet we've never had a solid ground. So going back to this trust and what does it mean to be rooted, to be grounded? Like there's been so much emotional, mental, cultural displacement in a short span. Like right now, we're witnessing what's happening in Gaza and Israel and all these things. So there's literal displacement happening. But that's been, I think, a recurring theme in history with colonization, with converting people, like all these things. And not to, again, I am not claiming what's right or what's wrong, but it's just to notice the trends, the cycles. And so because of displacement or because of this deficiency in our waters, there's not been a filter. There's not like someone here cleaning the water to make sure that we can all get our minerals and our nutrients. It's just we just keep dumping in it. The systems just keep dumping. And the ocean literally still has the Titanic and how many histories and how much stuff is in the bottom of the ocean that's still there. Like this is the bigger metaphor of like us as individuals. We still have deep things that have not been healed or have not been possessed. We haven't owned our own stuff and dealt with it. And we just keep going through life catching up, figuring out. And so this thing of practice, I think, is so beautiful and important because one, it's a practice. It means that it's not perfect. And then also it's like, it's a routine. It's what can we do consistently that is meaningful, is helpful, is nourishing, brings us back to ourselves. So one other example, and then I don't know how I'm doing on time, but one other example, and then I'll wrap up on my segment, is that when I think about deficiency, talking like about business, for example, because Sarah and I both talk about our businesses and what we're trying to bring alive into this world. Maybe that's our filter, is like our tiny little thing, coral reef that we're trying to do. So I have struggled with the income part of the business consistently because I'm like, is it fair to charge people while we're all flailing about in the water? Like, let's say I'm trying to teach people to swim or I'm trying to sell the life raft, but it's like, don't I just want to give the life raft? Why do I need to make money off of that? And what does reciprocity and boundaries and ownership, responsibility look like when we're all trying to survive? Like, what does that even look like? And thinking about the larger strata, that there's billionaires who literally don't give a fuck. Like there's billionaires literally consistently polluting. I saw this article. I mean, I don't know anything about Chicago, but there's, I guess, this annual thing where they put like 82,000 rubber ducks into some river. And it's part of this competition of like, I think people can donate or can purchase a rubber duck. And then, so it's part of a cause, kind of like run a 5K and then however much you run, something like that. But in my mind, I was like, why does it have to be rubber ducks? And why, and so I was just thinking about like what does it mean to try to show up in a way that I feel like I'm owning my stuff. I'm looking for nourishment, and at the same time, I'm not wanting to take away nourishment from other people or from other things. Um, my family, everybody's an immigrant. Me and a handful of cousins were born here. So we're the first generation born on this side of the border. And what does that mean? That means that, well, we have papers. Like, we have a big benefit of being a United States citizen and growing up in a culture that is English first, because I know that anywhere in the world with that passport, it opens doors for me. I speak English. What countries don't speak English? Like, it's a huge advantage. And yet, thinking about the deficiencies or the limits that all my family who came before me didn't have that access or privilege or honor or whatever we want to call it. The emotional, financial, geographic displacement, like all of that ripple effects. And what does that mean for me engaging with that community, with my community that I don't even feel a part of because I'm in a separate bubble. So just, I say all of this to say that I also am reckoning and reconciling and in the moment redefining what all of this means to me. I do charge for a business because it's a need. I know that I need money. Why? Because I have to pay bills. Why? Because I can't be off the grid yet and have a homestead. Like, in this moment, this is where I'm at.
Someday.
And Sarah's gonna be my expert, and I'm gonna happily pay you because this is the reciprocity of, like, this is how I'm honoring you, and that's how I'm redefining it. Is like, if people can only listen to this podcast or our separate podcast or whatever, then that's beautiful. Take what you need and hopefully keep giving to others. But if there's a willingness, if there's a deeper sense of need, engagement, ability, to work deeper, I'm also here to get paid to hold bigger containers. That means that more of me is in that. With the family thing, like, it's a constant, I think, renegotiation of what does that identity mean to me, and what do I choose to take and let go of, because not all of it is working for me in a Latin identity. And so I ask myself, and I want to, I think I'll end this and then I'll transfer over of what, I have a note here of, like, satiation. So it's like, what is it that is going to satisfy you? What is it that you need in this moment? And today, Saturday, August 9th, I may need something that is very different than tomorrow, than I needed yesterday. And so I love how Sarah brought practice, because it's like practicing this personal inquiry of, what do you need today? What do you need in this moment? And that could literally be nourishing your inner child. Have a good cry, take paints, go ground, hug a tree, go say sorry to yourself, go confront that boss. It could be whatever. But it's like, what do you need? And be so honest and so naked and true to yourself, because that's the only thing. Like, I think that's what fish and the animals are doing right now. Like, they can't even figure. I'm trying to put myself in the fur. I was gonna say shoes, in the skin and everything of the animals, but, like, how can we think about the ecosystem when it's like we are lacking, we need something? So to show up in a way that feels good, that's resonant with the rest. It's like, what is it that you need? And don't shame yourself or feel guilty. So I'll end it there so that I can pivot to Sarah. But give yourself grace, everyone, and we're all in this. Give yourself lots of hugs and loves. We talked about our sun signs. I'm a Cancer sun, so I'm all about the love and nourishing. Go make yourself a bubble bath, please.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Because I'm a Libra sun, and in my brain right now, I was thinking of the orcas. I was like, put yourself in the fins of the orcas who are attacking the boats right now, because the orcas are like, stop it, and there's just more and more in interactions or attacks, or like small boat fishermen getting like sideswiped or like knocked by orca whales, and I'm like, that's really interesting. I haven't seen stories of that lately, but it was a couple years ago that it was a discussion between me and my friends. Like, I think the ocean is trying to say something to us.
That's right.
And there is, that balance of give yourself grace. Self-care looks a lot of different ways. It's the hugs, but I love that you also said it's also the hard confronting discussion with your boss or your partner or your family member, whoever it is. There is, and I still am like learning the truth of this every year. It's because I forget that self-care is like the pain and discomfort is also just as nourishing. Maybe not just as nourishing, because it's not like we should lean into pain just because it's there, but to recognize what you need first, and then be willing to do the hard thing despite your feelings that I don't want to. I think that's a really hard, maturity was one thing that I thought of in my list of deficiencies. And Jess and I talk about this sometimes, and I'm not thinking of one, I'm not thinking of one workplace or circumstance or community or anything, but, and I'm also speaking for myself, like the lack of mature, fully adult adults is shocking. Like really, there is this, I was just talking with someone in my office yesterday, that we fall into the trap. She was speaking of someone else and she works with, falling into the trap of, well, they should know what's professional. They should know what I mean. And there is a balance of like, they can't read your minds, but B, there should be some level of precedent of like what is professional. So I get both sides there, because that's just how my brain works. And that's unfortunate, because I often don't know. I often don't know, like, well, what is the appropriate thing, or the mature thing, or the professional thing? And I think some of that is a byproduct of me not knowing who the F I am for so long, and maybe even including now. But I think that's why I love Raquel, this project and this work, because every conversation has been timely and allowed me that space to reflect during that moon, because right now we're doing these once a month. And so a whole month of like soaking into a topic, and that hopefully for the people listening allows you to soak in an hour or 2 hours into this topic of deficiencies. What are we missing? And it's allowed me to notice these are the things that's missing, and it's pushing me to make real changes in my life. So I'm going to have that hard conversation soon. I have it planned, and I'm going to think more about my career, and I'm rebranding, updating my website, like to think about, I'm going to go berry picking this weekend. Like finding, you know what, here's what I'm deficient in. Here's what I'm truly deficient in. I need more time in nature. I need more work-life balance. I need more time tending to my garden at home. Like there's just this list of, if you take the honest, true inventory, and coming back to your highlight on trust and truce, what does that mean? Like, how can people even relate to what is true for them? I have like kind of scattered notes here as always, but I guess I'll just start the need for roots. The lack of connection, like I said, the lack of rooting down, the lack of belonging to a place. I have this handout written by Jonathan Pageau. And Jonathan Pageau, if you ever watch this, I would love to interview you. But it's a handout, an essay called Discovering Identity Between Tyranny and Chaos. And I really started thinking about identity as a deficiency leading up to this talk, because in real estate, in the real estate world, and in sales in general, I'm sure you are taught that if you want to build connections with people, meet them on their identity level, what they identify with. People who go to a certain church, people who literally live in a certain area, you have a community, you have a sense of identity with your neighborhood.
That's right. That's right.
There's all these little pockets of identity that we feel a connection to, and the deficit of knowing your own truth and finding your own identity, I think it's hard enough. It's hard enough. But this little section that I would love to read is just a small little paragraph, is under the section of the excesses of identity. And so in my previous story, I think I mentioned that I went to college for nutrition. That led me to plant medicine and nature connection, which led me to survival skills, which led me to real estate. Okay, so that's the chapter I'm in now.
That all makes sense. I'm kidding.
It all makes sense, yes. Because and someone there's the Spokane, okay, I don't want to rabbit hole too much, but the Spokane Women's Club used to have a home ec club. And I like, one of my dreams is to bring back home economics, like make home economics cool again, because everyone thinks of just like sewing and cooking Bisquick pancakes. That's what I did in home ec, honestly, in middle school. We added water to pancake mix. And I think that's a valid skill, but it's not like the back to the land vision of what I think about when I think about home economics now. And I am a little bit on that, like that radical back to the land world, but with a very, very grounded, hopefully approach, because I am obsessed with balance. I'm in all things. And that's next month's episode, actually, is balance. So
Libra.
Libra. I'm so excited. It's going to be equinox season. Which is just a terrifying time. I swear, every twice a year, I kind of have this existential, like, oh no, like everything I'm working for has another side. And so when you build up an identity, expect it to break down. And if you hold too hard onto your identity, which is what this section is about, the excess of it, this is what happens. Okay, so it starts out with a little quote by Simone Weil that I don't know. The Need for Roots actually looks like a book or an essay, but it starts out with this quote. To be rooted is perhaps the most important and least recognized need of the human soul. But it is necessary to recognize that the need for roots is also one of the most dangerous, leading to exclusion and tyranny. Because as soon as you draw that wall, here's what I am and here's why I'm safe, you have to recognize that there is a wall. There is a line that has been drawn. Okay. And as much as that provides safety, I'm obsessed with villages. All right. Oh, that was my point about home ec club, is because someone was like, wow, you want to bring home ec back? Like, you're interested in so many things. And I'm like, I'm interested in everything that it takes to build a village. Turns out that's everything. At least everything that was required for our survival and existence. And beyond just survival, how can we like take it to that next level of cooperation? How can we live in a cooperative culture that actually is connected to the land and our neighbors and ourselves? And I'm feeling emotional because, like, to lose sense with yourself is a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And like, that's the inheritance that in many ways we were given. That's what this article is about, is like the need. Actually, our culture is changing so fast. And I'm seeing more and more little like videos online of the COVID babies, and how feral they are. And it's just like a little, I've only seen a few like, wow, the COVID babies are at it again. And because they're like 5 and 6 now, you know?
Oh my gosh.
I know, the ones who were born during the pandemic. And so I'm just so excited to see, and that's why I love working with kids and why I miss it right now, actually, because how do they see the world? What identities do they hold? And to be born into a time of chaos, especially that time, but like we have a generation of that. So anyway, you said the roots, meaning to have, be master of, and possess. to recognize that while there is a deficit, the excess has just as many consequences. So this is the part that Jonathan Pajot wrote, leading into the excess of identity. So he says the need for identity does not preclude identities from having their shortfalls, like I was saying. In fact, so much of the postmodern critique since World War II has been a reaction to the vicissitudes of identity. Vicissitudes is an unwelcome change of events. I had to look up that word.
Please. I was like, please, thank you.
Vicissitudes, everybody. And so because the strong nationalism and racial theories of the Axis powers after World War II led to the attitudes of conquest and the dehumanizing of marginal peoples, the West has been very sensitive to the abuse of identity and its relationship to violence. An identity can become a weapon wielded against one's perceived competitors, leading to war and conquest. Identity can also impose itself too strongly on the elements that constitute it, mistaking uniformity for unity, eliminating the more granular identities of its own constituent parts. This is often how we understand tyranny. This tyranny can express itself at every level of participation, becoming iron-fisted control in one's own life, one's family, one's religious community, or one's nation. So I love that excerpt because and it goes on, and I wrote next to that the Fibonacci spiral, because how you relate to oneself is how you relate to, like, the one. It starts with 0 plus 1. It's right here if you needed a reminder what the spiral looks like. And then the 1 plus 1 is 2. The 1 plus 2 is 3. That sequence goes on for infinity. And you see it everywhere in nature. We see it. I see it outside in the sunflowers. We see it in the human body, the proportions of our face, the proportions of our knuckles, how a hurricane works, how a tornado works. And if we can remember that there is an undercurrent of natural laws, like we were saying earlier, you have your capacity. You do not have more. And if you are burdened, your capacity goes down. And to think that you can go beyond that is just a natural law that you just, there's an ego there that I have seen in the big world of sales, of the big world of anything, not just in the sales of real estate, but in the sales of professional development. Buy my course, like we're going to decommodify self-development or self-help and personal development, but also buy my course for $1,000. And it's this weird paradox of like, well, how do we fit into this? And I don't think there's like a perfect answer. But I can tell I'm starting to talk really fast because I'm getting worked up. So I'm going to go back to my notes and see.
No, I loved it. I'll just say everything you said was like, what the heck? Because that's what's happening now in 2025 with tyranny and, the two polarities of so many socioeconomic. So I was like, wow, that's super. I mean, just the analysis. And I will just say there's something so beautiful around people who have the capacity to go very deep and put language to the things that we're not understanding. Hopefully this series helps people do that. Not creating answers, but like there's something about creating a vessel, some space, because we don't have that, and that's a deficiency in our culture. So anyways, I just wanted to say that was beautiful.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I Jonathan Pajot is a beautiful writer. In order to unravel, I mentioned in my origin story, religious trauma. I grew up in a church that I say religious trauma because that's what happened. First of all, that's how I reacted to it, was to be traumatized by a religion. It does not mean that community, that church, in that point in history was wrong. And that's something I have gotten to the point of within myself. Like,
wow.
How do I wrestle with this? Because they were good people. They were trying their best. And the philosophies that I embodied turned out to hurt. And he is in the Gospels and the Exodus series that Jordan Peterson puts on, and those videos, and hearing a roundtable of all of these like theologians and neuroscientists and like and psychologists and sociologists and community leaders to reframe and to break apart the biblical stories in a way that helped me digest them better was very healing. And he always has such beautiful poetic, like fractally lenses that he sees things in, because he's an artist, and I'm in awe of that, because it's like this dude, that's how he describes himself. He's an artist and a writer, and he's out there like dropping wisdom bombs on, he probably wouldn't like that analogy actually, but but dropping the wisdom that allows people who can see the in-between to put words and language to it. And I think going into my list that I curated for this, it's a very simple list that I've kind of already spoken to, but empathy. Okay, I've had a track of, and then I lost it. But my list starts with empathy. It's funny. It also starts with critical thinking. That's maybe where I was going, because that's what caught my eye. Because the 6 a.m., like the mornings, this is a good time for me. But I haven't eaten food yet, so we're all up here. Critical thinking as a skill is something that, if you are living in the in-between world as an artist, as a thinker, as a scientist, you can understand how and why this is so necessary. But like, what? Everything's fine. I do plenty of critical thinking. If career, some bullet I had there was about career, because you mentioned the etymology of the word career comes from cart. And if cart is a lane, and if it's a rut in the road making the cart go in a certain way, that's a path. That's a path. So if in like in Spanish, it comes from the word race. If it's a race through a rut,
that's right.
What is your grand purpose and design in life? And maybe it's to ride that cart. Like, I don't know. Like we need a lot of carts to build a civilization. So
right.
I think I'm not speaking negatively about the career thing here, because you and I talk a lot about this. I too am trying to develop a career. I have my evolution of career, like I stated earlier, and interest has kind of led me to, real estate is my career. This is what I do for a living. This is who I am. I have found a sense of purpose in a career, in an industry that I didn't see coming. I really didn't. And it's still kind of confusing. So the question there is, how are you operating in your personal natural state of thinking? And how has technology played a part? Because the other thing on my list as we go down is the deficit, the total deficiency of nature connection. I think the screens have played a big part. Obviously, it's a beautiful thing. It's how I've met lots of teachers. It's how I met you. Yay! but with the screen has come speed, has come the possession of ourselves in order to bring about like the grandest technological age in history as we know it. I'm sure there was another grand technological age, and I'm sure it's well, I'm not going to say I'm sure, I don't know. But like all those cities that are at the bottom of the ocean, like the world has like collapsed, shifted, broke, been hit, expanded, like our planet has been through so much trauma that the ancient civilizations that were here might have had technology that overtook them. We don't know. I mean, we obsess over that idea all the time, just like we obsess about zombies and like the undead and the Walking Dead.
Oh my God, that's literally what we are, but I won't say too much about that.
That's a different episode.
That's a different episode.
It's true. We are going to have a whole episode dedicated to like essentially possession and like the rise of zombies and bullshit and lies and Yeah, bullshit as a phenomenon. That's a John Vervaeke thing. Oh, he was also on the one of the Gospels. And his take, John Vervaeke, he has a whole thing on YouTube if you want to look him up. Mapping the meaning crisis. Oh my gosh.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, no, that's not it. It's been so long since I've watched those videos. But he has a whole series from a cognitive scientist standpoint on like how do we perceive what we know? Because our perception is everything. It's what we think we
That's right.
like. Okay, going back to kind of my list, but it's nutrition, because I, like I'm a nutritionist and that was my formal education. And I learned a phenomenal amount about metabolic processes that I don't remember most of because they're just so complicated. But all of the nutrients that you take in through food, macros and macros being fats, proteins, carbs, macros meaning vitamins, minerals, you might include water in there. But all those things break down into simple sugars, amino acids, lipids and fats. And all of those little individual things come into the metabolic processes that give your muscles, your bones, your blood, your oxygen, everything has a system. There's a process to everything. Everybody wants an answer, but processes are always more true. Okay. There is not an answer to metabolism always, but when there is, it's pretty clear. Like you are deficient in vitamin D. That's pretty clear according to the blood work, right? So let's say you add more vitamin D and who you are 6 months from now, if your vitamin D comes up, that does not mean you are suddenly in homeostasis and a perfect person, right? You are evolving through that whole process and you get up to this new point of balance, a new homeostasis, and there might be
random, sorry.
Oh, I love that little party emoji. Yeah, because
I was just you were dropping bombs. I was like, I need to do something.
There could be, I mean, especially the process thing. That's a one-liner that stuck with me years ago. That's, I don't know, probably another podcast. And but it spoke to me as a nutrition person because just because you're deficient in one thing doesn't mean that's the only thing that's needed to bring you back to health or full capacity. Full capacity. What a thing. Like, if you have felt like you haven't experienced your full physical energy in years, there's something to that. Like if you think that just not being in your 20s anymore is why you deserve to not be at full energy, if you think that's the only criteria to you not living in full health, I would encourage you to challenge that belief, because you have physical energy as a person. I hesitate to say it's like a human right because I don't really understand rights fully. Like I mean, really, but like I don't know if housing is a human right. I feel like I advocate for that pretty like spiritually, but I actually don't know if I don't think it's a human right. I think it's the right of a village. I think there is a cultural responsibility, like you have a responsibility to take care of your neighbors, which actually he gets into, like to care for your neighbors. That's the whole Fibonacci thing. Like if you can figure out how to hold yourself, you can figure out how to hold the person next to you. How do you hold the person next to you? You get to know them. You understand, like that's one of the most phenomenal things that I find in intentional communities is and I just got back from the Vermont Eco Village tour with ecovillagetours.com, and Cynthia Tina, she's a phenomenal communitarian, showing people what it's like all over the world touring eco villages. Why did I bring that up? Oh my gosh, see, I told you, the blood in my
you're good
brain, because the random acts of kindness are everywhere. And it's not just a random acts of kindness. It's because these people know their neighbors so well. And it's not because they spend a ton of time with them. It's because they just get to know their place and their environment over time. So they start to see what's needed. And I hear farmers talk about this with, when you let the land do what it wants to do, you start to just naturally see what's needed. You don't get that if you're living somewhere for 3 years or for
That's right.
for 3 seasons. You just
That's right.
can't, like the whole like double-sided edge of a root. It's like the benefits that come
Mm.
are beyond what I think most Americans can even comprehend. I shouldn't say that because I think most Americans live in rural land-based communities. Um,
Mm.
or maybe just as many that live in like urban centers, but most of our population lives in urban cores in America, the United States, because um, because of the Industrial Revolution and how it brought people into the cities and took people out. And that's another deficiency that towards the end of the last episode, we didn't go into the Industrial Revolution, but to remind you that is what we're living in now. We're living in this postmodern effect of, okay, bring the people in from the countryside, take them away from the land, give them a new job. With that came probably more clear gender roles. Like, okay, someone's got to go be the breadwinner. You're going to go to the factory. Someone else is going to stay home and keep the home. And then all the cultural lessons that came with that through the 50s, 40s, 50s, you know. So slowness is another deficiency that I think, because we aren't as connected, because we aren't in these natural cycles as much, we don't have the space to make an informed decision. With that, free will, choice, freedom, agency, you mentioned that earlier, like what if these are our options, like you renting, that's a perfect example in my world. Like, okay, we're paying $3,000 for an apartment, and then I literally have these mortgage lenders who are like, well, then, you know, talking this out about clients, like, well, if that won't work for them, if this type of loan won't work for them, if they don't have this or this or this, well, then they have to go get a job that makes more money. And I was, I actually, in all of my respect for this mortgage lender, I was like, I have a question about that. And I really approached it from a place of curiosity. And he was of a generation and like twice my age. I'm in my late 20s, and I'm like, excuse me, how?
Good for you. Say it.
What?
Be the orca.
And it was really, I really was thinking about this conversation, thinking I'd bring it up today. And I'm glad I remembered it, but I can't remember the guy's name. I don't have his contact info. It was when I was back in Seattle with Century 21, and I lost a lot of those contacts. I'm like, oh, I wish I could figure out who that guy was, because his response was phenomenal. He was like, you're asking really good questions, and I don't know. And he had these like very human creative processes about, well, if what the tiny home movement isn't necessarily helpful, but it is a start, and here's how we can essentially funnel people into more of an ownership, more of an equity position where generational wealth becomes an option again. And I can have a whole 3-hour episode on generational wealth and the wealth gap, and why the housing industry, this is a good time to pay attention to it. But that's just, you know, from my perspective, that's Gaia speaking through me, I think, of like, pay attention. And I'm very curious naturally too about all this anyway, and that you can kind of hear in my story how it started with nutrition and now it's in real estate, and they're very much connected. So that's,
it's all nourishment. Like, it's all nourishment, honestly. So I mean, okay, I have a lot to say to what you just dropped on all of us, but please continue.
Okay, well, you can, say what you, well, here, let me finish up and then we can dive in, because I really, I think if I just mention these things that are on my list, I feel like, okay, at least I said what I was hoping to say. I feel like, oh my gosh, we have to talk about DEI versus meritocracy, because I have that note. But I feel like as millennials, these are the things that modern United States millennials feel deficient in. Empathy. I have a story about that. I'll come back to it. Critical thinking. Nature connection. I think related to the toxicity, like the over saturation of the screen and speed, and the possession of speed, and the whole trance state. Actually, the Emerald podcast, I'm going to mention again, has a great episode about trance states and why you literally do neurologically go into a trance state when you get stuck in doom scrolling. So it is a very real possession that happens, which is what sucks away our time, because that's the next thing on my list. We think we don't have the time, but we're actually having it sucked away unconsciously. So why are we expected to do it all and care about it all at the same time? And we actually don't have the time to. We don't have the capacity for that. So slowness, we're deficient in slowness. We are deficient in the space to create the maturity that helps us make an informed adult decision because we don't have the slowness. Access. If access is a privilege, we have to ask access to what? So if we're deficient in equal opportunity or equal access, digging a little deeper, what are our real human needs? How do we can we decipher what our real human needs are so that we can ask those proper questions? I mentioned free will, agency. And then this is kind of the whole point of the whole project here, but the deficiency of resiliency. Resiliency, the building of resiliency is the building of proper boundaries and how to hold them, I think. And that is the same conversation as human capacity.
Yeah.
So that the emotional impact of these deficiencies is the lack of culture to pass on to future generations, the recognition of ownership or the lack of ownership, like what is ours and how do we let go of what is not ours. The skill, the practice of that is diminishing. The emotional trauma just of like, okay, you're born into this system, you realize what the system is. That process alone is traumatic. To process the grief of, oh, I wasn't given what I thought I needed to survive, even though I thought I was surviving well. And so it's a very spiritual awakening like process to have your identity break down. And I think if we had more space to allow mental breakdowns, spiritual breakdowns, the rebuilding, we don't have enough time or space to allow people to do that. And so we just kick them to the streets and, hate them. But, but they're the same. Oh gosh, no, I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. Okay. So it creates zombies, addictions, autopilot, the hungry ghost, the never satiated archetype of the taker, the consumer. Actually, it's hyper consumerism and materialism. And then people with a lack of purpose, meaning reality, embodiment. They don't know where their body is in space. They don't know what's real. I think there's a big, scary issue of that with the younger generations. The YouTube algorithm shows me what I watch. And so I, in my little bubble, think it happens all the time because it does, but not that much. But there's this phenomenon, and it's always been there, of children committing crimes. And I think that minors committing crimes is related to their overuse of technology. That is a very, very simple, opinion that I'm admitting to right now, but there's people in that world who can speak to it, and I would love to actually interview somebody about it. But what does the relationship between not having a grasp on reality have to do with you not understanding the consequences of your very real actions? Why does a 16-year-old not understand that running over your boyfriend that you're mad at will kill him? That was a real one that I watch these court cases, right? I'm very interested in the legal court system and stuff, the back end systems, and you just see these poor kids caught up in the moment. And yeah, I don't know. I also was in youth court when I was a kid, and so got very just exposed and have a big heart for kids who don't know what they're doing. And I think this is some of what those deficiencies create, is this lack of connection, lack of reality, and then the toxic conformity. And you have a note here, AI, the erosion of trust as well. We're not a machine that if you just plug in, here's how to do it, and then we just do well. We're a lot of us are very scared.
That's right.
So that's all I have to say about that.
That's all. That's everything, you all. No, I'm kidding. And now we leave you all to fend for yourselves, like you have been doing. No, we won't do that. Why would we do
No.
that? But it's like all of what you have said has so many pearls. The whole thing is a pearl. But it was just like one thing that kept coming up for me was process. There is like all of these things for me equate to process in the sense that we don't have a village, so we have to be our own village.
Mhm.
We haven't been role modeled stuff, so we have to be our own role model. The thing about perception, like nobody has given us, like what we have inherited is so much trauma, confusion, doubt, fear, debt, and it's like now we're all trying to figure it out, and there's no mirror or there's no support, there's no relationship. Like I love what you talked about the village and how nature, like talking about nature. I asked ChatGPT because if you all don't know that ChatGPT is Raquel's pseudo therapist and the pseudo physical therapist, and that I play at it. I play at it, but it's also like it's a sad truth that I don't have the money or the time or the resources to find the individual experts or the village. I don't have that. We don't have that, I think, as a group of people to have our own team, our own squad. And so I asked ChatGPT around how does a tree know like when to support the other trees? When does a tree know that it's gonna give more of itself and support the forest and the ecosystem? And ChatGPT had responded something like the tree is in devotion to its own design, that it gives, but kind of going back to what Sarah and I were saying about capacity, that it's a natural law that we have what we have and we don't have to push more beyond that. And so I was like, oh my God, ChatGPT telling me that trees honor their own design and like they're devoted to their own design, and that trees inherently respect their rhythm. I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is why trees are wiser. And if I'm gonna put a hierarchy, like trees are better. I mean, I've already told my husband I would rather be a tree or a butterfly or something because there's, I mean, humans are we are brilliant, and we are also stupid. Like we're not brilliant. Like there's so much ego-ness that I think gets in our own way and creates so much problems that we are creating our own problems and we're not solving them. And then we're not like, where did this come from? No, bitch, like you literally created that. Like you clean up the dishes. So what I was trying to say with all of that is just that I'm gonna look at the notes too. The piece about the empathy, the critical thinking, like all of free will, for me, all of that came down to like there's a lack of process. And if we were born in villages, if we were born in communities that, you know, we had elders or people that could model things for us. I interviewed this guy on my podcast. His name is Tad Hargrave. For the, you know him, you know him.
I love Tad. I didn't know you interviewed him.
I did. I mean, his episode is coming out later this August, and he was a big part. I don't even know how I found him, but I think a couple years ago when I was starting the business, I was like, I don't like to do business in this very salesy, like you only have 24 hours and you do this funnel. Like I've never had a funnel, and I've had some clients, and I'm working on the consistency. We're trying to create sustainability, but recognizing that sustainability isn't every day all the time. Like nature isn't that way, you know? Oh, when you were mentioning about the environment stuff, I was like, I have a girlfriend who she has a lot of like these lights in her house because she's like, Raquel, every winter I go through SAD, seasonal affective disorder. And I read an article that why do we even call it that? Why is that a thing when winter is supposed to be about darkness and seclusion? And, you know, nature knows that right now is not the time to try to bloom. Like everything is dead. We need to kind of die. We need to kind of let ourselves be held and shed that skin and just engorge, binge, nourish. I love a good chili. I love brownies. Like I love hot cocoa in the winter and just do that. You know what I mean? And so, what is the nature of business and marketing? So I think through that, I found Tad and I was like, oh my God. For those of you who don't know context, Tad Hargrave is this Canadian alternative. I don't know if alternative is the way, but he goes by Marketing for Hippies is his brand. And his whole, for me, premise is making marketing, doing business in such a way that's reciprocal, that's sustainable, that's honoring the individual and the business in a very natural, organic way. We all want to make money and have sovereignty, and we want to do it in a way that's ethical, that's courteous, that's sincere. So anyways, so I reached out to him. I'll tell you this after the show, but I reached out to him and I was like, please be on my podcast. And so anyways, where was I going with all of that? Just that, like the concept of because he mentioned on the episode that one of his friends who's a Cree elder, I forget the tribe, but that babies come when they're born with their hands like this because it means that they have something to give. Like they already have something in their hands. Oh. And I was like, and then the village, he said something that like, but then the village, the elder, the people witness and they allow that being, that baby, to express themselves. And like, okay, I see that you like farming or agriculture, or you like herbs and healing, or they just let you be. And so you said something around like, you know, when the metabolic processes or like in nature, it does its thing. And so I was like, well, no wonder we're all in deficit, in deficiency, in debt, in doom, in death, in like whatever else D-Day. We're in constant D-Day because it's like we are trying to recuperate, create something that we don't have, which is the witness, the elders, the people. We can't do it on our own. I mean, I think all psychologists are like, humans are relational social beings, and to put us in boxes, literally, figuratively, all the time. And, you know, we're all trying to figure out things because no one has figured it out for us. Like, it's not up to us. We're supposed to be supported. You know, the mother, the father, these archetypes, this village is supposed to support us. I mean, they even say it takes a village. So where is our village? So I just loved everything you said about process, and yeah, I love us, and yeah.
No, same. I even what you're saying there, like about winter, like we're supposed to go in and be inward in the winter. Not if you have a career where you get 2 weeks of vacation. Like you do not get a winter if you have to work 50 hours or 50 weeks of the year. And maybe it's around, maybe you get a week in the winter to yourself, but the whole, because I have an 8 to 5, I can see why they're beneficial. Okay. That being said, but that is the same reason that I think we have a generation of, and we're on like the second or third, we're on the third generation now of this is normal. This is our new normal. That's one reason I got raging anxiety when during 2020, when everyone was like, well, we have to get used to our new normal. I don't think any individual has a good grasp on what that new normal should be, but a lot of individuals have an opinion on what they think it should be. And it's kind of scary because of how quickly it changed, and because Well, I guess at that time we were all like, okay, go home. But right now, like none of us have the time or space to continue to challenge, well, what does new normal mean? Where does the village fit into this? Where does my own sense of purpose and meaning fit into this? I think before, like 5-10 years ago, it was hard enough. But now with the cost of housing, the cost of living, everything going up, like doubling in a lot of cases, we can't, no way do we have the capacity to actually ask those questions. That's not a choice when you're paying more than half of your income just to keep the roof over your head. And you're lucky if that income that you're giving to your housing is actually in from my perspective, in the name of ownership. But that's only a positive thing if you're going to stay there for more than 5 years, which is a privilege in and of itself. Like, so if you actually know where you're going to root, maybe you get to create a community. But if you don't, you are stuck in this limbo. And I speak to it because I actually just lived through this, and I'm still living in, I had this huge wave of grief on the Eco Village tour because I'm like, where's my land? Where's my people? Like, where do I want to be and to root and feel a sense of connection? Like my heart and soul, and this might not be like the right language for everyone, or like, but it makes sense to me. Like, I want to marry the land. I want to build a long-term trustworthy relationship where there's communication every day, where there is wisdom unfolding every day with the land around me. And I have a yard, and I have a house that I now own. And yeah, and it's because like this house that we've been remodeling, we're going to work on it today. It's such a big project, and it's a good location for my work, and it's not the land I want to fall in love with, So it's just another paradox of, okay, we made it here so we can get through the next chapter, but the noise pollution, the light pollution, my neighbors using Roundup, the city using stuff, like it's not. And I feel like with the place I'm living, the place I'm explaining is where a lot of people are. They're like, yeah, this is the best I can do, and it still doesn't meet all my human needs. So how do we, okay, maybe we can get into that. So how do people start? Yeah. Okay. So let's say they're in your boat, which is paying a lot for rent, and they're ready to kind of transition into something new. Or they're like me, they're paying a lot for a house that they own, and it's still not meeting all their needs. So where do people go?
I think we start with like, it's so hard because it's hard to think about the future when the present is uncertain. But I feel like I'm trying to encapsulate in a short way what I'm trying to do in my present. So I feel like I'm an open book. So let's just tear it out. I'm very, so I am married. I have been married 2 years, this second year, but I've been with my partner for 9. He is Peruvian. And so there's a cultural mismatch and I don't even know if mismatch is a word, but it's very different growing up in the global South and being raised in Spanish Catholic background, than being raised in the global North, where, and I use those words because I feel like I don't like third world country and all this other stuff. And so I grew up having access to McDonald's and like going to 7-Eleven or whatever. And so we live in an apartment here in Northern Virginia. I grew up with this, my parents like, get prepared, get a degree. You're an only child, you're a woman, you're a Latina, like the world is not going to do you any favors, so you got to do yourself a favor. And I was all about, I want to do yoga. I want to go live in Sedona, Arizona. I just want to like peace out. And and I never got to do that. I never got to be me until after I graduated. And I was like, fuck it, I'm not making money enough to pay my debt and to pay student loans and stuff. So I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to get a yoga degree. So my husband doesn't come from that background. So we, in our house, white collar, blue collar. I make more money than he does. But we divide the rent evenly. And he has been able to save more because he hasn't had the debt that I have had. And so I try to paint the picture of like in one apartment, one bedroom, there's already like multiple worlds living in here. And there's different ways that we approach certain things. I tend to approach things of like, going back to the question of what do we do, I'm always like, what's the future? How's the future going to support me? Whereas my husband comes from this perspective of, because in Peru, you can literally own your house. And so his mom, I think, is that first or second generation? The thing is that his sister and his nephews and nieces can inherit that. So that's 3 generations that can stay in one place. You know, like for me, that's an example of generational wealth. So they don't have to possibly think about the future in the way we do here in the global north, because we don't really own property like that. So his mindset is very different of like, things are going to work out. And I don't think he means this in a happy-go-lucky, but in his life, in my husband's life, he has seen things work out if you just work hard. And you know, politics in Latin America is corrupt. Like, I'm not saying that it's stable, but it's just that in their social economic situation, it's worked out, and they have seen the proof of that. Here in the US, we don't see that. And maybe I can make the argument in Europe, in the UK, in Germany, like maybe there are other Western countries that even if we prepare, the future is still uncertain. So it's hard to think about like, how do we make this work? How do we find land when it's like, but we don't even know tomorrow, will there be land? Like, it's really hard to think like on the East Coast. We had a hurricane in North Carolina. I was like, oh my God, I love Asheville, and I love all, because we went there, and they have a really nice community, and I am someone who likes to see a lot of different colors, a lot of different faces, a lot of different ages. I don't like to just be with Latinos. That's just my personal preference. I like the hodgepodge, and I love that about the East Coast, certain places. And a whole hurricane in North Carolina. And I was like, I had never seen, I'm from Florida. So I was like, what is a hurricane doing this far north?
Yeah.
So the scary of like, no, what's happening to the land that I don't have control over. So I think that was a lot of context to say that the way I answer that question is like, what do I have control over? Okay, I have control as much as I can of not having debt. Thank God. I mean, to a certain extent, COVID did me a big favor, because those checks went straight to the debt, to the student debt. And then I worked my big butt off, because I have a big ass. For those of you who can't see me, I have a very, I worked hard to get out of car debt. So I did 2 jobs, 2 full-times, remote contracts. And so now I don't have debt. So it's like, what can I do if I can, right? That's not the path for everybody, but what can you do? What feels realistic for you to do in whatever you're trying to pivot? So for me, it was financially. I want to have some savings. I don't know where we're going to land. I don't think this is our forever place, because right now it just works. There's a lot of jobs in this area. So we're making it work with what we can. But so it's like, what can you hold on to, knowing that that's not permanent? Like, this is a temporary solution, and we're gonna pivot as we go, because it's scary, but it's like, what can serve as your guardrails? Like for me, my goal, and I told my husband, is I want to have $20,000 in my savings. I have never in my life had more than 5,000 in my emergency savings, because everything was going to debt.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, that is what,
or
and
groceries. Jeez, Louise. Why is it
food?
50%. I mean, like it's nationally, like between the cost of living going up and food going up. I think that's, you know, do you what's like your vision for your life?
Oh my God.
Well, because I ask that because you just gave a lot of context for, okay, here's what I'm working with.
Yeah.
Here's what I can control. Here's what I can't control.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing is, okay, she's preparing to go live off grid in community, but that's not everyone's dream. And I think even if it is what they're searching for, like in their heart, that might not be what the language or actually vision with their eyes or their vision board is including. They might not be picturing an eco village with people they know and trust. Also, people who've been in that situation and it hasn't worked out for them, like there's a reason to not aim for that. So whatever people are aiming for, I think is kind of where I'm curious now. I just looked down. What can we afford? What does it mean to afford actually achieving what we want in life? And, both of us don't have kids right now. And I think this would be a very different conversation if we did.
Oof.
And how do we bring that into play? Because a lot of people,
That's right.
I think I mentioned this at one point, like just do things that they wouldn't normally do morally, the things they do for money, the jobs that they're doing, they don't want to do. I was raised by parents who didn't love their job and they really lamented it quite often. And it's one reason I think that played into my deep desire for purpose and meaning. Because I'm like, I will never do a job I don't like love. And it's like, well, here I am doing a corporate desk job, learning all these tons of skills, but I'm still like, okay, I see why people do this, because if I had kids and right now it's like, well, I need the consistent money to build back. My savings, I've spent a lot, I've gotten debt. And so if I had kids, I wouldn't even question in some ways, like the need for this and how can I take on more? Because I take on extra part-time work outside of my job, just to make more money. And the way it's justified when kids are in play, I guess, is my point. Because I see people in the real estate space where it's like sale. My kids got to eat. My kids got to eat. My kids got to eat. And because I'm interested in the social pattern of real estate sales and what it does to pricing, I'm like, is that always the answer? People will always move, always buy and sell, always. But the role of the salesperson is like another discussion, and what motivates people to go do things that earns them money, I think takes away their ability, and rightfully so, to see the moral implications of it on a grander scale. And not just, I'm talking about real estate, but like you in your mind, if you're in another industry, anyone, is probably picturing another example is people in government, people who work for big tech corporations, people who work for hospitals, for public school systems. I mentioned at one point in a previous episode that I have lost all trust in these institutions, and maybe not all trust. I'm interested in going back to school right now too. So I'm like, how do I rationalize this? Like, we can't just fully give up on the system, right? We can't, like, what does it do? And that's where I'm at right now, is like, what does it do to me mentally to give up on these systems? And does it just push me into more of an individualistic mindset of, well, I'm just gotta go create this in my own household, disconnect, disengage, and I go back to the land, but maybe that's my own dream and vision. So if people aren't wanting that or in that realm at all, like, what's their job right now?
I know our note says our job is to find deficiency, but I'm gonna say their job is to explore. Because I don't know if I think I told you this, I don't remember, but I put a goal for myself, one of those New Year's resolutions, that I want to take myself somewhere I've never been before, by myself, for myself. So once a year, I started this year, and I already did it, and I'll just shortly share the story. So that's something that I'm trying to give to myself the things I've not given or not received. And in so doing, I'm figuring out who I am now. And so like, I feel like if people are curious around, like, I realize, oh shit, I really do like to travel. Like, I like not being, right now I'm at an age where it makes sense not to have ownership of land, because I don't think I would give it honor and respect that it needs. And so with my husband and I, were like, no, we're fine in an apartment because we have dogs. We like having a small space. We like maintenance, having to deal with things that we don't have to deal with ourselves. And it gives us enough guardrails. And so like exploring the where are you now? So I took myself, I was like, I love London. I have a big obsession with London and books and literature and all these things. And for me, it's like a capital of, of literature. And here in the US, we so much of English literature, literally English is English, not here in the States. Even though, here in the US, we have a great American writers. But I was like, I'm going to do this. And it was so kismet, serendipitous, divine order, whatever you want to say, because I was finishing up a contract for a government job in February. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen if I have to find a new contract. What am I going to do for work? But I said to myself, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to give myself the space. So I budgeted the time, I budgeted the money. It was like $2,000, but I did that because I knew that that job was allowing me to pay off debt. So I was like, get one need met, get another in the future need prepared. So it is a little bit of like present and future juggling. And I decided I was like, oh my God, London by myself. I don't know nobody there. I don't know anybody. And I'm just going to figure it out, throw myself out there. And I went for a week. And like, this bottle is from London, the tube, their metro. And I have the poster from the British Museum. I have all these things. It was such a nourishing thing because I have never, one, given to myself that way. One, felt like I was received in a land, in a place that was so receptive. Because one of the biggest things I learned was, oh my God, that metro, their tube, the underground, is so reliable. Like, every block is there. So you don't need a car because you can just walk. And everywhere there were people that, I was a tourist, but if I was local, there's somebody there to answer your questions. And there's a map and there's all these things. And I say that because going back to system of like, here, the DC Metro Rail, there's nobody there. There was literally a fire, because I use it to commute to work. There was literally a fire in a station and nobody had announced anything. So we're all just sitting ducks underground in a metro waiting to hear. And I'm like, on the app, there's less connection because we're underground. And I get out to look for a human being and there's nobody there. So what am I supposed to do? So I say all of that because in me putting myself in London, exploring, like, wow, who would I be? Who am I becoming? By pushing my boundaries, by owning myself, by all of this, I learned that I like to travel, that I don't have the capacity for owning land. I want to have more space to explore myself, whether that is going on hikes. I really want to go a backpack trip. Like, I told my husband, I want to do all the things to do that. And I want to do it solo. And I want to do it with him, but I want to do it solo. And what I'm trying to say is, like, I think the job in finding deficiencies is exploring. Like, explore who we are now so that we can start to figure out who we're becoming or who we might be. And then that will help find the vision. Because now I'm like, oh shit, I told my husband, could I want to live in Europe one day? Like really strict, because I love their public transportation. I was like, the US is not cutting it for me in that regard. And there's something about, for me, multicultural is very beautiful. So having different languages, eating different cuisines, being immersed in different energies, that's very exciting for me. And their cities aren't like New York. I mean, no, if you're in New York, please don't hate me. But New York doesn't resonate for me. That's one land and one energy, just that doesn't resonate. So what I'm saying is just explore yourself, whether that's books, whether that's literally traveling, whether that's putting money towards different things. And in that way, you start to figure out, or I have started to figure out, what are my deficiencies? What do I need? What are my needs? How much am I willing to give to that? And that way I'm like, okay, right now, for the next couple years, this might be my future. Knowing that maybe there's room to pivot if I change direction. So it's like, who am I now? And then having a buffer, like that could change. So hopefully that made sense, but that's kind of what I'm working with now for like vision creation. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, I mean, what I hear in that is you're finding ways. You're putting yourself in an environment where you can recognize easily what aligns and doesn't align, and in that also finding what you can and can't do. And maybe that's what you started with. It's like, well, I can take myself on a trip to learn about more what I like, because this is what I like. And I have one concept that I love kind of in this realm is that maybe, I won't say maybe we should, but I think for a social experiment worthy, let's just say you should love the work that you do. And if work is kind of the thing that we have no control over, like you are going to work to live. There was a guy on the Vermont tour that I was on a couple weeks ago who said, all life requires burning. And I was like, oh, I'm going to write that down. Like, and it's kind of an obvious because metabolically, I understand that from a land, building homes. I understand that from growing food, eating meat, eating anything, digesting anything requires a sense of burning. And so if you have to work to survive, which you will, you're a human, even if you're a tree, but like we have this freedom to move about the earth. And so because we have this privilege to move around, what if we end an obligation to work? What if we used our mobility and our exploration skills to find the work that really aligns with us? And by staying within like the confines of, well, keep your mind on what you can control. And I love that oh my gosh, we have so much in common, Raquel, because my first trip to London for me was solo. And I went there for a psychological yoga teacher training. The first one that I put on in the US, I went to Brighton. And so I flew into London to do that. And exploring London solo was like, my people, because they literally are my ancestors.
If you're British, please, I don't know, but just
I have plenty of British friends. We'll connect you. Actually, yeah, that'd be a fun trip. We can go see some of my friends and because I didn't get to go to the stone circles. I didn't have fully because I took the buses, but you needed a car to get out into the countryside. And I had friends who had them and offer, but I was like, I gotta get back to London for my flight on whatever. And so that's on the to-do list. So that's something to put a pin in. And if you're listening, like those little glimmers, like you see the way we get excited about the things that light us up, like coming back to embodiment and the lack of embodiment, the lack of feeling yourself in space and the biofeedback that your body is always giving you. If you can tune into that, befriend your nervous system, befriend your tissues, you actually can, the systems of the natural laws that we live on this world inhabiting, the laws that are a part of your reality, whether you know it or acknowledge it or not, you have built-in mechanisms that tell you whether you like or don't like something.
That's right.
Very vulnerable story, or
Mm.
anecdote rather, it's not a story. A couple days ago, Justin, my husband, we were just like touching in the kitchen and like talking, and he put his arms around me, and I have gained weight. I have gained like I'm heavier than I have been in a little while, and so he put his hands on my belly, and I got like on my tummy and like on my little squishy parts, and I got so uncomfortable. It really caught me off guard how
Hard.
deeply uncomfortable I got, and all the shame. And I was really thinking about it, and because we have this process of clearing with each other.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, can I clear something? This has been kind of bothering me, and I haven't brought this up to clear with him yet because I'm still like in the processing thing. But he acknowledged, like, yeah, I told him the next day, like, yeah, you can touch me, but don't touch me there. And it's just this weird, all this to say, it is not, I have this built-in mechanism for being ashamed of the fat on my body. That attack, like the way I was relating to him in that moment wasn't necessarily about him. If I had related to the fat on my body in a healthier way, and I have teachers who have helped me with this, like the belly song, there's a belly song. Also, why the hell am I so ashamed of my body? Like, it really led me down this internal journey of, first of all, that's not his to take on. That's not Justin's fault or responsibility to make me feel more accepting of my own body. And I don't even know if it was mine to take on. Like, where did this thought even come from? And so acknowledging how you've accepted societal stories, how you've internalized cultural adaptations, recognizing that your body, as truthful as it is, could also be kind of lying to you because of past experiences, and giving yourself the space and honesty and truth. I mean, gosh, truce, treaty. We are going to make an agreement that reality is what it is. And if it starts with you, it starts with the zero. It starts with me and my relationship to myself, and then I can extend my relationship with you. This is like classic childhood, like classroom stuff. Like, I talk it out with kids, and it's this very, well, if you hit him and then he hits you, like, what happens if we just keep going? And the very logical stuff is like, we all die, and it's like, yeah, that's what happens. So I guess all of that, is if your job is to explore, consider all of that in your exploration, that there's a lot of truth and there's also a lot of lies built into your experience, our experience.
That's right.
So creating a boundary system, a value system, a non-negotiable, this is who I am, and let the rest go. Because I think it's kind of scary. It's been kind of scary to me, like how little of my own identity is actually mine. And Jonathan Pajot gets into that article. It's like, your identity is never self-determined. I mean, there's a lot of self-determination, but it's never just that. It is all of who you are and how you are in your environment too. So there's way more factors at play in the identity and the empathy and the thinking and the who you are and your sense of reality and the truth and what you have inherited. Going back to inheritance is such a big part of this discussion. So in your exploration and finding what is deficient in your life, like, if all of this is kind of overwhelming and you're like, I don't think about any of this shit day to day, but if there's a voice in you that's like, but I want to, I mean, start with embodiment work. That's what I would say. Like, start with a physical practice that brings you into your body, and hold yourself with grace, like you said. I mean, gosh, that's so important. Would you say, here's a question for you, would you say that the people that you've helped through self-trust, because you do consulting work with people, with other millennials, and developing a
Yeah,
sense of self-trust,
yeah.
if they kind of hold on too tightly to an identity,
Mm.
or too tightly to their own expectations of themselves, do you
Oh,
see a sense of regression, or is it something else? Like they regress in their self-growth? Because I found that in myself. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not maturing at all because I'm so freaking hung up on my own what I think I should be, you know?
yes. The answer is yes.
Okay.
I I heard this quote that I literally heard this week. Expectations are premeditated resentments.
Mm,
And I was like,
I'm writing that
holy
down.
yes, holy F, holy whatever, holy, because it was like premeditated resentment. So that means that to
Ugh.
expect something is a choice. Like I'm already choosing that this forward thing that I don't even know about is going to affect me in a certain way. And I have a friend, okay, to talk about boundaries. You know who you are and you know I love you. If you're listening to this. We're different because she comes from an African country. And so I don't know what it is to be an immigrant. Even though I'm a child of immigrants, it's a different experience. And she has a master's degree. Like she literally came here at a certain age where she was able to take advantage, put herself in the position, and had access to all the things. And yet, and she really struggles with identity. Like this being what her culture, her family wants her to be, or needs her to be, or is telling her to be. And her, like, she interned at NASA. And I know you know who you are if you're listening, because I told you you're badass. And she's done, like, for me, I'm in awe of her. And yet, she, I'm sure, living the experience, is not in awe of herself
Mm.
because the competing identities and the like, why can't I be what, and like in a professional, going back to career, I feel like she has found her lane. She loves sustainability. Her master's is in environmental science. That's her career. That's her niche. Shout out to Tad Hargrave again, because the root word of niche comes from nest, and it's like to create a nest. So when we talk about
Oh.
career or business, it's like, what is the nest? What is it that the community, the home, this safety thing that you're creating in the world? So I feel like we can have an identity that feels very, is serving us and is helping us in the forward motion, whatever that could mean for us. Because it's not necessarily linear, but it's like we're moving forward in something. So there are identities that I think serve us in that, but then there are others that, especially when we're not exploring, we're not open to the nakedness, to the rawness of us and our past and our inheritance. And that could be mental, political, spiritual, emotional, financial, whatever. Then it gets really hard, because it's like, if the two identities meet, like in my friend, her career identity clashes with her cultural identity, because there's an expectation of being at home and being a mother and what that looks like in her culture, versus her wanting to not equate money with purpose. Like a lot of people that I work with, money is not the thing. The thing is purpose.
Yeah.
So like I worked with this guy, he's a friend of mine from college. Jason, you know who you are, if you're listening to this. And he's very much like a homesteader. He wants to have his eco-stead, and he wants to transition out of working in nonprofit situations. So he knows that he's not in it for the money. He really is in it to create something that is rooted in his values and his identity. But for my friend, um, it's hard, because it's like what she may want for herself is in direct contrast.
Right.
And so I haven't taken her on as a paying client, and I try talking about myself to have a boundary of like, how much do I give, talking about capacity, because I'm like, I don't want, I never want to push somebody that isn't ready or isn't willing. Like, I think that has to be something that they really want and need, because if not, then it's like I'm the mom or I'm another figure in their life pushing them, and it's not coming from them. So I would say, yes, it's super hard and it's regression. And I personally feel like she's stuck, or like in her own whirlwind. Like, we're all our own worlds and ecosystems. And I feel like she's in kind of a natural disaster of her own making or of her own choosing. And not that she wants to be, I don't think anybody wants to be in that, but it's like, if we're not choosing which deficiency we're prioritizing, which is, do I choose to address this need, this lack of the cultural stuff, or am I addressing the career stuff? Then it's like, well, then you have, what does nature do? Like, nature implodes when two tectonic plates, boom, volcano, you know. So I just, it's hard because it's, as a coach and as a friend, it's like I have to be the witness, going back to the elder and the whatever. Like, only so much I can do, and it's not even not taking their money or whatever, but like, there has to be a certain ownership. We have to like own, is this what we want for ourselves? And maybe we do want it, but we can't invest. It could be financially, it could be mentally, emotionally, because it takes time. So yeah, I don't know if I would call it a regression. I feel like it could be if it continues, if there's no like breaking point, which I think in nature inevitably there is. Like, sometimes it takes a job. Like, I had a client and she was like, Raquel, is it that I'm in a toxic work cycle? Like, I keep getting bad managers. And I was like, huh, like, that's even interesting that you're asking yourself that question, because that's already like, she's owning, is this a me thing? Is that a their thing? There's already a desire for clarity. So yeah, so that was a lot. I added 2-3 different examples, but basically, like, identity is an evolving thing, and if we're not reconciling it, it's reckoning us, it's wrecking us up. And so it's like, where can we soothe this? Where can we make peace with this? Put some aloe on it, you know, like, and knowing that aloe may not be the whole thing, but it's the practice.
Oh, I just took so many good notes of what you just said. Like reconcile or reckoning. I think there's talk about like the roots of words. Like these are they're very similar. And gosh, you mentioned consent. Something that I was told a long time ago, especially in the context of what you're saying with your friend too. What I think be really applicable is remembering that feedback without consent is often taken as criticism. And so if she's asking a friend, but especially if she's asking a friend who is a coach, like that you're looking for some sense of feedback. And so it sounds like she's also consenting to potential criticisms, which is really, really valuable. And it's one of the things I am seeing through this lens of maturity these days of, I also see it at work. I was hesitating on whether or not I wanted to say this, but I'm just going to say it because I work with real estate agents. I'm not in sales, but I work with dozens of agents on a regular basis, supporting them in their business with technology and marketing and tools and stuff. The amount of agents who come to me and they're like, what should I do with my business? Well, I'm in a support role. I'm not their broker. I'm not there to coach them on what they should be doing in their business, you know? And so sometimes I get a little irritated. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what to do? Like, what do you mean I'm supposed to tell you what you should be doing? You are the business owner. Like a real estate license is a license to operate a business. That same trend of like, I don't have the tools to orient myself. That's what I hear is I don't have the tools to orient myself. I tried it. Like maybe if I'm in sales again someday, I'll have a little bit more tools in my toolkit, but in outside of that industry, I see it in friendships or in people in passing or in other walks of life. I mean, even in a group of people,
Mm.
that I've never been in. I find myself being like, how about this? Should I do this? Should I do this? Is this okay? Especially if I'm in like a facilitator role. And
Mm.
that kind of contradicts this capacity that we have in ourselves as people to decide what we need, to it's the practice of learning how to ask the right questions so that you can orient yourself. And
Right.
we need a community to do that, really. It's not like they're wrong for asking me, well, what should I do? But
Right.
there is, when it's a pattern and when it's a
Mm.
practice of not knowing, and I say that very intentionally,
Mm.
if you are, and I was this way, I recognized I looking back, I was like, oh my gosh, I used to ask so many questions, which I'm not going to say is like a wrong way of being. It's not about right and wrong. It's about if you're asking so many questions around to the people in your environment to help you orient, you are relying on the mirrors and expectations of an external system to tell you how you should be internally. And with questions, the art of questioning, there's every single facet of that is a possibility. It's not by asking questions you are inherently doing that.
Right.
But knowing, like it's like the skill of asking questions. And so not being afraid of asking where am I to the people around you, but also practicing that question internally of where am I? And do I need to have this person tell me what to do, or do I need to tune in and decide recognize within myself, where am I? Where do I want to go? And how can I get there with the tools I have right now, with the capacity I have right now?
That's right.
And I see it in people who are very, very stressed, that capacity is diminished. That inner compass is diminished. There is not as much ability to self-orient when you are busy and working 7 days a week for months on end. And I've been there, done that, and I got very, like, I still am like suffering the consequences of what it did to me physically. And so when I'm around other entrepreneurs in this big hustle culture, they're in a way rewarding this process. And when you get paid, when you are physically paid and rewarded, both in social accolades and financial rewards, like, it's a very tricky situation. And so I don't know where I was going with that, but some like niche and nest. I love Tad. Oh my gosh. I met Tad, and this is maybe a segue or tangent to like big picture, like maybe we're pulling out now, but I interviewed him for an online event in 2020, actually, called the Embodiment Conference. And it was like in history, the biggest online event to ever happen. I think it came in a really good year because we were all at home, like watching this online conference of more than 1,000 presenters over a span of 2 weeks. And Tad was one of the people I got as like a facilitator. And I would love for you to like, I don't know, dive into like the competing identities with when you found your nest and you do feel like your identities are starting to compete with each other. Have you seen that in like the self-trust discussion? And can we afford, because I have this funny right next to my notes, like, well, can we afford to like leave the nest? What can we afford, and how do we expand on that? And maybe we've really already touched on it essentially, but
no, you're good. So competing identities and like, can we leave the nest? So like, what can we make? I'm trying to rephrase so I make sure to answer the question before going on tangents. Like, how can we make, after making peace or like coming to terms with competing identities, like what next? What's the nest look like? Is that no? Maybe
like, oh, okay. So here's where I think that people might be. They have a sense of safety. They have a nest, whether it's a niche in their work or not, but they have a sense of home in my world. But there's growth that's needed, and that's the little voice that I see it a lot in the intentional communities world, because people have a
Yes.
sense of safety, but they're like, certain needs
Yes.
aren't being met, so how can I expand? There's conflict usually. There always
Yeah,
a conflict. So
I got you.
navigating
I
that
got you.
conflict.
I got you. Okay, so I'll give two examples. One is Jason. Um, when I met him in college, he was activist, very adamant that like did not want to be part of the corporate ladder. Wanted to go to Southern Virginia, work in like a farm to table farming, very rural, and he's done that. Like since I've known him in college, and then since then it's been 10, well, I graduated in 2014, 11 years, and he's done that, and like he's been doing his thing. But the conflict, so why he was able to work with me and we were able to come together, was because that identity of like what he was doing before is no longer serving him, which is the eco-stead, his homestead. He wants to do something else with his partner. Like there's a next chapter coming. And so I think in one of my things that I always ask for feedback. I'm always curious what's going on for people and what has helped and how can I do better. And he was like, he realized that he hadn't, like anybody can, I helped him put his website and do whatever, but it was the internal like shift from identity from being a worker or just a doer, somebody who's employed, to becoming a business owner. And so taking on more of this leadership, authority, autonomy role. And he hadn't even recognized that that was the identity shift happening. And so working in that respect of like, well, we're not gonna, what's that expression? Go cold turkey overnight, but we're gonna slowly, what does that look like in what you're currently doing? So with him, it was like, okay, maybe you need to let go of one of the three commitments you have. And maybe you need to create a routine, a new system for yourself to actually start to devote time to that. And what does that look like? And I'm someone who really, we talked about the embodiment. So I know that I like to do things like in the midday. I like to take my leisurely time in the morning. So when I take calls or I do my podcast, it's not 8 a.m., 6 a.m. my time, it's 10 to 5. So I have that whole window of time to ideally cultivate this thing. So it's like working with what he's got and slowly letting go. So the exploration, the practice again of like, we're not just jumping into this thing because we don't even know, we don't even have the wings for it yet, but like, what could it look like to put these little experiments, experiences on a more consistent basis so that it's like, okay, you're getting some reps in. So then when it's time, and you will know when it's time, because I won't know when it's time, he will know when he's ready to leave the nest. Then it's like, okay, you've put your reps in, you know what you're doing, you don't know all the things, but you feel comfortable enough. Like another example for me, and I this is my second example, is me. The other reason why the $20,000 savings is so important for me is because I'm at this point where I just can't work for someone else. Like I literally can't do it anymore. Emotionally, mentally, I'm so done. Like I don't have the capacity, literally. I feel like I've hit that wall, and it is just a money thing. It's always been, but now even more so. And I've told my husband, I'm like, next year, 2026, I'm ready to leave the nest. Like I'm ready to fully devote to the business. It's not going to be a part-time thing. I'm willing to take part-time work so that I can at least pay my portion of bills. And I don't have to put all that pressure on the business because it's not ready to take all of that on. But I need to give myself this new nest, this new space to do that. So I'm doing the identity thing now. Like, what does it mean to no longer have that consistent income or that consistent rhythm and create something for me that isn't fully what I want? Because what I fully, going back to vision, is I want to be full-time in my business. I only want to work 4 days a week, 6 hours a day. I want to be able to travel. and at least take a month. Here in the US, that's unheard of.
Yeah.
But I want to take a month or 2 months off and clock out in the wintertime
Yeah.
and hibernate. So that's my ultimate vision. But to get there, I'm like, okay, so I need to get used to uncertainty because I'm not going to be getting consistent income like I usually do. I need to get used to getting in tune with myself. When am I most creative? When can I show up for people? And that's my experiment with myself now, and then mainly in 2026. So yeah, I would say when it's time to push the comfort zone, go gently, but do it in a way that you feel or anyone feels like okay, realistically, because don't want to just push too much and then it's like, oh, then you regress. So it's like push in a way that
Right.
okay, we're gonna push this a little bit, test the new job, or test doing less hours, or test getting a raise, or test, asking for the need, going back to need. Like if somebody needs, I had a colleague in my contract job, she was pregnant. And with all of these mandates from the Trump administration going back in office, she kind of set her tone with her manager. I am going on maternity leave such and such date. She's on maternity leave now. But until that point, I will no longer be coming in office because of my health for the child. She was commuting 2-3 hours from West Virginia to Washington, D.C. Her vision is to have a house with her husband and her kids. She's doing it. She's not willing to sacrifice one for the other. So what are we willing to give and take? And she's like, peace out. I'm still doing my work, but I won't be sacrificing my baby's health and my health for the sake of just being a butt in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like she pushed that edge, and now she's on maternity leave. So
That's so interesting. I mean, I think like going back to the being an element here, like parenting versus not parenting. That's something I've wondered is like the permissions that parents are given in the workplace should be there 100%. Workplaces should be more conducive for parents. That's why I think that 9 to 5 works for so many parents, is because there's a lot of tends to be flexibility depending on the environment and benefits. But like as a person without kids, how do I have any bargaining chips for my own sense of work-life balance or my own needs and desires? So I want to I want to go to the farmer's market soon. I just noticed in my time, the farmer's market just opened down the road. So I want to finish also because you mentioned wings of a bird. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's literally going back to my lovely article from Jonathan Pajot. He just put it out like this year. And I guess that's why I'm like, oh, it's so timely, because he goes through technology. And I want to read one little excerpt and then I'll kind of like round out my thoughts. This is literally his last paragraph of the whole article. Okay. Even artificial intelligence, if placed in its proper place, aligned by our deepest presence in the every small contracting and expanding of a guiding hand. Did I say that right? Aligned by our deepest presence in the every small contracting and expanding of a guiding hand, could play a role in stabilizing the extremes. Though we cannot foretell if the pendulum will be wrenched from its axis, we can work every day to reach across with love of neighbors, to make the movement more beautifully balanced and coordinated as birds' wings. And that's why I'm like, oh, the birds, like, okay, people, it always comes back to nature. And I have a big love of birds. Like, I did not know until I started, like, in my naturalist course, started to study birds more, that I'm like, oh my gosh, they're really such an ecological indicator for the space that we're in. I mean, when I went to Vermont, I heard cardinals, northern cardinals, and I grew up with them in Missouri, but there aren't cardinals here in Washington. And so just and I'm grateful that I can pick up like, oh, I'm in this place and the birds help me get there. And the balance of like the reference to the balance of and the coordination and the beauty of the flight of a bird is
Mm.
very metaphorical for just so many things. I mean, I think I mentioned like the metaphor of in a previous episode, like the baby bird doesn't leave the nest because it knows how to fly. It leaves the nest because it doesn't know how to fly, and it has to go through that free fall process to find flight. And of course, the intuition and the instincts of the baby bird, like it only does that when it knows it has the proper mechanisms to fly. But I think that's exactly how it works with us too. Is like when you are ready to cross that threshold, you should know that you've done all the work it took to even get to that edge. Like have that trust in yourself that you have gone through the exploration, the curiosity, the self-discovery of your life. And for me, it's about loving, like all of that is to love the work I do. And I hear that in you, like, well, here's what I've been able to sift out. Here are the hours I want, because I know that I need to do the work. I have work that I love. Here's how I'm going to piece up together my life so that I have the capacity to do the things that I want to do and not be so caught up in the stuff that I don't want to do in order to have the life that I want, and living these very dualistic, disembodied, separate parcels of life. And I think that just there's a life not life expectancy, but like there's a life expectancy for that mentality. Like it's not eternal. You can't go through, I think, your whole life and do it and be a open-hearted, open-minded, kind, courteous civilian that is loved and respected by your neighbors, which I mean, he ends with like loving your neighbors. Like that is, it's also psychological. We do well when we can cooperate well. So I will finish with I think I might have mentioned this. I talk about it a lot. So if this is how I ended the last episode, sorry, I don't remember. But the Hawaiian prayer, a Ho'oponopono prayer of I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, is the mantra of this whole process that I think we're talking about, like how to find your own deficiencies, acknowledge them, work with them, give yourself the space to experience all the human emotion that makes you so normal and valuable, and let go of what is not within that realm of your control.
That's right.
And enjoy the ride.
Oh my gosh. No, that's so beautiful. I feel like we're all artists in it, because it's like constant creation, like giving ourselves permission to create and create the systems, create curiosity, create whatever. And it's like just be patient in the creation. And whenever we create, it's not complete and we don't have to have control over the creation. Maybe what life wants is just to be whatever we have, giving ourselves the space to let things evolve as they will. So yeah, check out our Spotify playlist to get into that creative. I don't even know, but try if that is your thing. And thank you all, and thanks Sarah. And just this is really beautiful. I hope that this is helpful. Yeah,
give us feedback. And the whole idea of the playlist is that there is an ambiance to this process that we're speaking of. And so whether that's music or the lack of music or whatever it is for you. But if you have feedback or want, about the episode, of course, let us know. But ideas for songs to go into the playlist that have helped you with your processing, I'm very curious, because we are adding songs to it that we find to be medicine. At least I say that for myself, like a medicinal component to this process of discovery and transformation into the people we want to be. And with music that's helped you get there, let us know.
Yes. Well, I don't know if we have a ritual for signing off, but just thank everyone. Thank Sarah. Thank myself. Thank you,
Raquel. Thank you for
immense gratitude.
doing this work. I'm looking forward to the next one.
I know. Stay tuned for episode 4, balance. Sarah, Libra, all things.
It's my month too, September, my birth month, my equinox month. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. See y'all then.
I guess I'll sign off there. See you all.
Thanks.